Welcome to Sunny Morning Show. Elliot, how are you?
Hey, I'm great, Sylvia, and many more topics coming up. But before we get into all of that, it's an absolutely amazing day down here in Mexico today. You know, the weather, we had a couple of bumpy days, right? You know, but the sun is out. I mean, there's people around the pools already active out and about here this morning. Water aerobics is on. People are in a really good mood, which is great. So we've got great stuff going on here at the El Dorado Royale. Should come and check it out here. We're open 24/7, 365 days a year, and we want you down here with us so we can talk to you about what you feel about what's going on in the United States, Canada, Europe. We've got people coming in to the show from all over the world. Lots to discuss with you. And
exactly. But today we have to discuss something very interesting. You were pointing out that one interview about sexual harassment where 1 out of 4 men actually believe that it's okay.
Yeah, you know, it's still kind of, although it's been in the news and all these new hashtags, you know, Me Too, and it's not acceptable, hashtag this is not working, you know, how much more awareness can we throw on this subject? I mean, we've got to keep talking about it because it seems that the message is not getting through. You know, this latest survey from CARE, it's a humanitarian organization, they surveyed 9,400 adults throughout Asia, Europe, and North America to get a mixed cultural response to this topic. And, you know, 25% of the respondents still feel that sometimes or always it's acceptable for an employer to have sex with an employee. So, I mean, how much further do we have to discuss this in order for people to understand the ramifications and how serious this situation is?
Well, in one point, my opinion as well is a lot of men who are in a position and, you know, like in power, they are the managers, directors, etc. They have an executive position in general. So what they normally do, they don't call it sexual harassment. I am not justifying them, of course, at all. However, they know that they can actually lead whoever they would like to have sex with. They could lead a person into some offerings, like undercover kind of offerings. Incentives, motivating or stimulating the person in general, and that is the reason why also they believe it's okay. And I think it's because of one reason, Elliot. In the case of the women, which are actually vulnerable most of the times, psychologically wise, most of the time they feel loneliness, they don't feel appreciated. Sometimes they don't even feel beautiful. Sometimes they don't have self-love to themselves. So whenever somebody actually comes, paying attention to them, you know, throw them a really nice guideline, right? Wow, you shine, right?
And or a comment, or maybe it's a flirt.
Exactly.
Disguised as
and sometimes they actually go even beyond that. Not only the flirting part, but also like they offering like, well, you know, like you are with me, you know, pretty soon I'm going to be able to promote you, and then
throw the incentive.
Exactly, throwing the incentive and the stimulation. So like it's all together. It's more or less like when a married guy approaches a woman, especially a young woman, which they don't have so much experience in the field of love.
So they're more vulnerable.
So they get trapped very easily. And all they have to do is promising them, you know, a couple things. They don't have to promise that much either. So that's what I think, that, and they accept. So actually, from a sexual harassment, it ends into an acceptance from the other person. The other person actually accepts the situation, the sexual situation with her boss or his boss, because sometimes it's for men as well. And actually, just not as a therapist, but living the life just like anybody else. Of course, I have seen different situations, how men and women, sometimes they accept, sometimes they don't. Have you had sexual harassment, Elliot?
I did, actually. I had a case of it personally when I worked in London. And it was actually from a man, not a woman. I mean, it's as strange as it happens. You know, you think life prepares you for almost anything, and then suddenly, bang, you know. And this is what I think tends to happen all around, you know. It catches you when you least expect it, right? And, you know, in the case, You can either confront the individual, right? I mean, normally sort of your own personality or your actions take over and how you deal with it. However, when it's somebody that's above you in the hierarchy of the organization, then when do you come out and blow the whistle? Because this is what's saying in the report, 23% of men, 33% of women, under 10,000 people surveyed said they had experienced sexual harassment.
Definitely.
That's huge. Out of that proportion of people who said, okay, I've been approached or I've been molested by it, very few of them said, I've actually done anything about it. And that's the thing, we're seeing, I've been really following it, ever since it started to become really public knowledge about the film industry. But then it was the athletics, the Olympic team, the female Olympic team, who, these poor women, they've had to come out and testify against a doctor who 20 years ago had been molesting them as 6 and 7-year-olds, and now they've got to confront all of that and bring all that pain out again. Over 150 girls, and said, I'm not a child anymore, okay? Stop, this is over. I'm coming at you now as an adult, and it's not too late. I want to see you put behind bars,
Unfortunately, it actually works very similar with pederasty. When little girls or little boys, because it's the same. They try to stimulate a person somehow for them to be able to say it's okay, and also more than that, for the little kids to be able to keep that as a secret and not to tell anything until, of course, they grown up and then they realize what happened in their lives, and they take action.
It's happening a lot in sports, in the football leagues in England, a lot of young lads, who were trained they were scouted at the age of 8, 9, 10. Then they were put into the youth teams, and it was in that time that they were abused with the same thing. Like you said, that incentive, you're going to get into the first team and making all these promises, but destroying their lives,
Exactly.
And then the humiliation for these guys, as 30-year-olds, one came out about 3 months ago, and then a whole avalanche of, other football players, some not so well known, some very well known, said it happened to me as well. When that whistle blows, then it kind of calls the masses, to the cause.
Definitely. So it's a really big problem. Like in my case as well. I mean, several times I got to get that sexual harassment.
Fend off
in general.
a pest, right?
And
a sex
one
pest.
of the times, I could manage, to get out of the way without any consequences.
I'd be very afraid of you, Sylvia.
Except for one time. Hey.
I wouldn't do that if I was you. Think of that with Sylvia.
Well, except for one time that actually I got fired. I got fired over a sexual harassment. So exactly. So if you say no, sometimes that happens. And the really reason why I want to bring that out is because if you are women or guys, do not be afraid. Nothing happens. Even if they get to fire you, your dignity is first.
That sanctity, it's your human, yourself, your personal, dignity.
And the way that you do not permit at all anybody to touch you or tell you something sexually unless you actually want to, and for a good reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But not because somebody is trying to force you, trying to make a strong influence on you, and if you don't do what you're supposed to do for them because they want to, just because you are like a pleasure, you represent pleasure for them, that's all.
Yeah.
And that's not good. That's not fair either for you.
Well, I was thinking, interesting, this survey was carried out globally. So it was kind of interesting how different, culturally, they picked Africa, they picked Asia, they compared it to Europe, North America. Now, in India and Egypt, for example, this has been going on for so long, practically undetected, because again, with women in particular in those cultures, don't you think they don't come forward as much, for fear of the reprisal, for fear of that, dare I say it, especially in the Middle East, the culture, it's very male oriented, very dominated, and they have more of an expectation of submissiveness, and I don't know. Am I right, or am I hitting the spot?
You are right, and I just would like to add, and it's not only on those countries, also in Latin America. Latin America has severe problems about that, about women actually come forward and say and stand up on their own and actually say something that they would like to on their defense. And sometimes they actually feel that it's inappropriate to actually say something like that.
Yeah.
Like confess, or sometimes they feel ashamed of themselves. Sometimes they feel that they're not going to believe, and sometimes they think that it's just a normal thing that men do, and then it's okay.
Well, I love it now that there is a recourse. I mean, it's a general situation where anybody that's in that situation can go on #MeToo, #ThisIsNotWorking, and they can denounce anybody that is really giving them a hard time, or at least be in a part of a group where they feel supported, and then they can take an action.
Exactly.
We'll be back right after the break, guys. Thanks for staying with us.